months roll by, and then we get time to play, and we're all prepared and practiced. And through the grapevine, I hear there wasn't enough tickets sold to the conference. They had to strike some of the different things because of the budget. And one of those things was paying the musicians.
It's like getting
and
stiffed at the door.
yeah, and no one was telling me that. I just heard it. So I did.
They
kind
weren't
of
forthright about the financial situation.
I know, right? It's so simple, but
I love the idea of them sitting you guys down though and being like, "Look, kids, money doesn't grow on trees. It shows up in bowls once a week by the thousands, and we can't give you any."
Yeah, it's all for us. No.
Hello and welcome to Growing Up Christian. I'm Casey.
I'm Sam.
I'm Jeremiah.
And Sam, I thought about you this week. I was driving through Dallas. It was this morning, really. But we're on our way out of town, and I noticed there was a billboard with like a scantily clad lady on it from a gentleman's club.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, "Unlicensed therapists on duty." And I thought, I wonder if they're hiring.
I have to move to Dallas, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
We have, anytime I drive south of where I live, there's like a bunch of billboards for a place called Electric Blue, and it's all like nude silhouettes of ladies.
Is it like a club or like a jerk-off theater?
It's a club. I mean, I'm guessing. I don't know if those are like a mix and match kind of deal where you could maybe do both for the right amount of money, but
could be. I mean, they seem to play into each other pretty well.
I've never been to one of those types of establishments, actually. So we might all be in the same boat there. Our good Christian boy personas prevented us from getting into any trouble like that when we were young. And then we were also married, and that would be a relationship ender.
Probably for the best, yeah. Honestly.
Oh, there's no regret here. Like, I think the only regret would be going to one and being like, oof, why did I do that? That
like someone talking about the regret of like, oh man, I just never got to try smoking when I was 16.
Yeah, I'll go to the theater, but I'm bringing a flashlight.
Yeah, it's like, like, does anyone regret not trying meth?
Sit in the front row and then periodically like stand up, turn around, and shine the flashlight around.
Oh my god,
Casey really wants to get stabbed. I can see.
Just like get hit with mayonnaise.
Oh, ew.
Hey.
All right. So a couple of things happened this week, school related, that I feel like I need to get off my chest. So so live in New England, and it's a winter weather climate in January. So last week was leaving work and a snowstorm was coming in, and almost every other school in the area had just called it. They're like, just preemptively, it's a snow day. We woke up, no snow on the ground, but the snowstorm was coming in. And dealing with snow in this area is kind of a paradox, because it's like, if you call a snow day, you probably will have not needed to. But if you don't call the snow day, there's going to be like 6 feet of snow by 10 a.m. So it's very it's tough because a lot of the districts, some kids, like especially in the city, like kids have to walk to school if they live within a certain distance. Not my school because it's an elementary school, but like it's tough. There's plenty of drop-offs too. So like if there is snow and parents don't want to drive, or there's just a lot of things to consider when calling a snow day at the school. But my school didn't call one. So by like my day ends at like 3:30, and by 2:00 the snow starts coming in pretty heavy, and everyone's looking out the windows being like, oh my god, like it's gonna be a nightmare driving home. So 3:30 hits, there's a little bit of snow on the ground, the roads are slick, everyone's driving real slow, and I see a guy jogging with shorts and no shirt on.
There's always that
just
guy
covered in tattoos. I drive home at 3:30 all the time, and I never see that. And I'm just saying,
no, that guy. There's always the guy that's like, this is the time to show everybody that I'm not just about this life. When like the sun's shining, I'm about this life all the time.
Yep. And
I
it's
don't
just
even get cold.
it's just the worst kind of flex. And seeing him and he was in good shape. I don't know. His tattoos may or may not have sucked. I don't know. I wasn't able to see them, but I'm like, shorts. It's shorts, no shirt in a blizzard. Your tattoos suck. I know they're dumb. I know they're going to be awful.
He just has Jocko Willnick's face on one shoulder
Yeah.
and Joe Rogan's on the other.
Yeah. I would imagine.
Also never takes a day off, bro.
Yeah, it was pathetic. You just see that and you're like, it's just a strange mentality, right? Because that guy's going out thinking, oh yeah, like people are going to be like, this guy fucks. He's cool. And no one thinks that people who make those types of decisions are just a strange breed, because in their head, it's like the person who's singing with headphones on. You're basically the running equivalent of that, right? Like you have your headphones in and you're just singing in the public. It's like there was someone in my school, one of the so now I'm going to roll into two janitor stories. One of them was unintended, but it's the running equivalent of this guy, because I'm walking down the hall and there is this guy with just rapping. I hear rapping down the hallway. I don't hear music. I just hear white boy vocals rapping hard. And I turn the corner and he's like in the middle of the hallway, and I make eye contact with the teacher at the end of the hallway, and she looks at me with this like, is he having a mental breakdown face? And I look at him and then immediately look away, because you don't make eye contact with people who are doing that. And
This is a student, right?
no, this is a full grown man who is
Oh,
one of
okay.
the janitors who is
He's just rapping his way down the hall.
and he's rapping hard.
Rapping while he
Is it
works, or
While
just
he
like
works.
looking for an audience?
A
Okay.
real
all right.
like
Is it
a
explicit
real Snow
rap
White.
or
Yep. It was, and it's a real rapping while he works, a real Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs situation. And the lady looks at me and she mouths to me like, "Is he rapping?" And it's like I just like winced and nodded, and she just her eyes rolled to the back of her head, and we're like, "Why is this happening?" So he is the guy running is kind of it's at that same type of mentality. He's the equivalent of the person rapping in the hallways. And then lastly, I feel like I've just come to terms with this, but there's something about my face that says, "Please tell me everything I don't want to know about you." And one of the janitors comes in. He's a great guy. I like him. People can have a problem with me for liking someone who has bad opinions about stuff. That's fine, but always cordial, super nice. The kids always talk to him. Seems like a great guy. Somehow he thought I was the right person to talk to about the COVID vaccine. We're past that, right? We're not talking about that anymore.
I think
In
we're
society
definitely
writ large, right?
yeah, we're definitely past talking it up as a random conversation topic with people
Yeah.
we don't know well. Yeah.
It'd be
it's
nice.
the last thing in the world I want to hear somebody's opinion on.
Yeah, it really is. And he just goes into it. And I don't even remember how we got there. It was just, something about people being sick. Yeah, people getting sick again. He's like, I don't know. I'm not worried about it. Like everyone was always worried about COVID. I wasn't. I didn't even get the vaccine. You don't even know what's in that stuff. And I'm like, why are we here? You came in here to take out the trash. So please, like, let's do that. Let's do that. I'm doing my job, which is like typing up some notes. You're doing your job. Why are we here? I don't know how we got here. I didn't ask for any of this. And I don't know. I'm not interested in a conversation about it. And then that you end up in that panic of like, do I accurately represent my feelings around this, or do I figure out the best way to get out of this?
Always get out.
Yeah. That would have been better. But I was just like, yeah, I got it and I'm still alive. So I guess it's fine. But
The guy that strikes up that conversation did not do so because he's like, I wonder what Sam thinks about it.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
it's a
It's because he was
performance.
thinking, I wonder if Sam knows how I think about this.
Maybe he thought, maybe I give off a vibe that's just like, oh, this guy's anti-vax for sure.
I mean, I can understand if you still had your dreads, like that would make sense. I think you wouldn't have to deal with as many people wanting to tell you their opinion on stuff, but you'd probably or tell about them because you wouldn't look as trustworthy. But then definitely guys who want to talk about the vaccine uninhibited would think like that guy will get it.
Yeah,
Dreads for sure. You would give off this. What type of quartz fights germs?
Yeah, this guy likes essential oils. He's He's got a strain of marijuana to solve this problem. Yeah,
Oh,
I don't know,
man.
but I feel like that's something that happens to me frequently where I think I don't know, maybe that's why I got into the career that I'm in now. Maybe I just have a face that says, "Please tell me everything you're thinking," and I just opted into the right career for that to work out for me now. But I don't know, it didn't feel like the right time to get into that kind of a conversation.
I know what you mean. I had someone tried to witness to me at the coffee shop the other day.
Oh my god,
And
I've been
Oh,
begging
really?
for one of those experiences, and they never happened to me.
I think this is the first time it's ever happened. So like when I walked in, there was definitely like there was, a lot of college age kids there or whatever. And I saw like these two girls and this guy praying together, but it wouldn't be like out of the ordinary to see somebody doing a Bible study at the coffee shop or whatever. So,
Right, right.
the way this coffee shop is laid out, there's like a lot of couches around the outside and then some tables in the middle and everything. So you can definitely find a spot and just park yourself on it and chill. And so that's what I was doing is right after I'd gotten my haircut. This is right after I'd hurt my back though. So I was like leaning forward at just the right angle where it didn't hurt that bad and like hunched over and just doing some work emails on my phone while I drank my coffee, just minding my own business.
They
And the two
mistook
girls,
that as passive interest in their conversation.
they think they may have like mistook it as like I'm hunched over with my sadness and my troubles or whatever. And they came up
Oh.
and they were like, "Excuse me, can we offer you this fruit?" And they were holding a banana and an apple. And like, no matter how friendly I am,
Ew.
What?
somebody walks
Oh
up to
my
you
God.
holding like non-packaged food and you've never met these people before, like instantly I'm like, this is probably fine,
Hey,
but I'm not
to be
touching it.
fair,
Like,
bananas are technically packaged.
That's true. That's
Oh.
true. But they were like, we just felt, and as soon as they said we felt led to come over, I was like, oh, I'm in the trap.
Yeah.
Should have been like, my mom's not here to check it for razor blades.
Does it have oh man, it just slipped my mind. What's
It's okay.
what's everyone worried about? It's in
Drugs?
heroin or whatever.
Oh, fentanyl.
yeah.
Fentanyl.
Man,
Oh,
fentanyl.
yeah. It didn't look like a fentanyl apple. Like, I don't know what a fentanyl apple looks like, but I was pretty sure this wasn't it.
Okay.
But like, everyone likes to daydream about what would you do in like a bad situation? Like, would you spring into action or something? I was not ready for this. I just sat there like an idiot staring at them for a second. Then I was like, no, thank you. I don't like fruit. And they just looked at me. And instantly in the back of my mind, I was like, they're trying to be nice, be like, smile a little bit. Please don't freak them out in this interaction. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, well, is there anything you'd like prayer for? And I was like, no, thank you. I'm good. And I was just trying to like move along.
You didn't decide to tell them about your erectile dysfunction at that point?
No, it just did not seem like the moment to have a conversation with them. But I felt bad after they left because I probably was like a little bit rude and a jerk.
No,
but
they were rude. You didn't have to feel bad about
No,
anything.
they definitely, they came over and like, excuse me. I mean, they didn't like just barge in there. They were as polite as you can be walking up to someone in public, which is a terrible thing you should try to avoid doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
So
was
not
totally
polite
not
is
ready
what you're
for it.
saying. That's
I
just
did
not
not-
polite.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming. And I don't know if I need to look at myself in the mirror and like, what about me made them think that I was a good target today? I don't know.
You
You
look
should have
lost.
just like waved your hands around the fruit and be like, I don't feel any attached strings.
But yeah, they were probably very nice. And I'm sure they were just, trying to be kind. So it was all good. But yeah, it was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, oh man. I feel like I never get witnessed to, but I do get a lot of like political conversations that start up with me.
The worst religion. I mean, rather because that's a religion in of itself. So
It is.
It
is for sure.
I'd rather dodge those. Those are harder for me. I would love to be witness to. Like Mormons knock on your door. It's like, come on in, brother. Let's do this.
Come on in. What?
No,
No,
some fruit.
I think, someone talking to you about their political opinions is easier because you can just, if someone like is unbidden talking to you about their political opinion, they are not looking for you to do anything other than just, oh, yeah. Like you can just nod your way through it. People sit down in front of you and they're like, here's an apple. What can we pray about for you? Like that just feels awkward. And again, they were trying to be nice. Like they were not being weird about it at all, other than it's weird just to walk up to people in public.
Very weird. It's like starts there and 30 seconds later, they're asking you if you'd like to commit your entire life to Christ. And you're like,
but there's no good way
How'd
out
we
of
get
that
here?
conversation. Like that's not that's not something you just go, oh yeah, and just kind of like nod your way along and exit the conversation. This is like you're going to have to directly engage them. So Casey, what's your normal tactic when you get into these conversations? Just like, oh man, that's crazy.
It's almost always with people that I can't like be rude to, or
Oh, like guys at the shops and stuff that you're going to.
yeah, it's like customers and stuff. Like
Like, if I
got
can
one
say
this
for you,
week.
buy this fucking carburetor. That's what you
Like,
sell, right? You sell carburetors?
Yeah,
yeah, sure.
that's a
I'm
thing.
close enough.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, even like this week, it was with a person that I know through work, and it's just a situation where like I can't say much, and he was going off on how the liberals are purposely ruining the economy for the Great Reset or something. They're going to destroy the dollar and blah blah blah. It was kind of like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I don't know, maybe, who knows. And then at one point he goes, and he's an older guy. He's like, I think that I might have grown up in America's best days.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
I was just like,
Definitely did.
you did. For sure you did. Like, you definitely grew up in like the peak years of post-war United States, like busting
Well,
economy,
especially
and
for like, I'm guessing this was a white dude, right?
yeah,
Like baby boomer white dude. Oh yeah, there was never a better time for white dudes. Like top of the heap.
like boomers had it so good, like through, and all they've done the entire time is just like whine about how people are trying to take their little piece of it.
I know.
Like the only thing trying to take your little piece is father time. Hurry up, move it along.
Meanwhile, dude, my wife and I have recently started talking about potentially like moving, not far, just selling our house and moving to like 30 minutes and basically into the city, into Worcester. And we're like, houses, they're not nice. They're not nice. I see the ones that pop up and I don't want to live there. And you have to spend almost $500,000 at fucking 8% interest right now. And it's just like, I can't.
Well,
I'm never moving. I will never move.
right now is the worst time to buy. Like, it's just not good because
awful.
the interest rates have gone up and the market is still like
Way too high.
It's way too high for what it is, and the sales are starting to drop, and like the housing prices are going to come down, and we'll get a little bit better equilibrium. But yeah, right now it's like the worst of both.
It's hard to imagine. I mean, I think in my lifetime, this is absolutely the worst time to buy. But it sucks. Like, I got family who was like just recently talking to them, and they're like, "Yeah, we're trying to find an apartment, and they found like a 1-bedroom apartment for $2,000 a month," and it's like that's
In the same city in Worcester.
near it, yeah, and it's a city outside of it, but it's like I have a 4-bedroom house, and that's a good bit more than my mortgage, and that's like I mean, it's unbelievable, but they'll get denied. Like, they're never gonna, with the market the way it is, there's no chance of buying because you're gonna spend almost $500,000. And even if they were, even like a few years ago before everything shot up, like if they bought when interest rates were completely plummeted, like because of their like technical income, it's like, no, you have to spend, at that point, it probably would have been like, you have to spend $1,800 a month on an apartment because you can't afford a $1,600 a month mortgage, is how the bank would look at that. And it's the fucking Wild West, dude, for trying to figure out how to like not be homeless. Like, I don't know, man. It's
I feel
bleak.
like up
It's
until
bleak,
like
especially
3
in the New
years
England
ago,
area.
up until like 3 years ago, it was like prime time.
Mm-hmm.
Like in that time period, if you couldn't find your way into that situation, I don't know, it might just not be in the cards, I guess. But yeah, right now it's pretty
You're
tough.
boxed out. You're pretty boxed out. You're in your mid-30s. Both of you work full-time plus, and you can't afford to buy anything.
Yeah, I guess without moving to a much lower cost of living
Right.
area, which they exist, but you don't want to live there.
Yeah.
I mean, like you personally.
And your entire life
I
is like
definitely
wrapped
want
up
to
in
live
this
there.
Casey does.
Dude, I
Casey's
spent like
is there less people?
I spent like the last 5 days in Dallas, and I don't understand how people can live in like these heavily urban areas. It's
Yeah.
just like so many people. It's so inconvenient to get anywhere, to park anywhere. Like, there's always a wreck, there's always construction. it's like, it was fun. We did some fun stuff in the city or whatever. But after like 3 days, I'm like, I just want to go back out into the barren prairie and not see any other people for some time.
Yep.
But yeah. So, so at this conference thing, it's kind of like a trade show, right? And it's like anything that's related to car dealerships in any sort of way, they have booths and stuff set up there. It's a lot of like software companies, and then, it'll be like, oh, this company makes like car washes. And so they'll have like a whole car wash set up inside the convention center showing how it runs, or, lifts or tools, all of that. And so I think like back in the day, it was pretty common for these booth people to like hire young women in very little clothing to work at their booths, right?
Okay.
And that's kind of gone out, and now it's more like, people, they hire people to man the booths. Some of these companies do, but everybody's pretty like normally dressed. There's nothing like out of the ordinary and stuff. But there was one company, and it was it was a software company. I can't remember what the name of it was. It was like Triarch or Trionic Arc, or it was
Treyarch,
something.
like the video game company Treyarch.
Yeah, something like that, but it wasn't that. But we were stopped because they had like some people on stage in their booth, and they were talking over a loudspeaker and stuff. So my partner and I stopped, and we're listening to these people talk, and I'm looking around, and there's like a whole bunch of dudes dressed the same. And like, you could tell that they were kind of like in a uniform, and they were working the booth at this thing. But like, they must have held auditions, because every one of these dudes is jacked, like just ripped. I mean, and they got, their uniform is like this super tight, tiny t-shirt that barely like tucks into their pants. And then they're wearing like these stretchy, spandexy white dress pants. I mean, and they're like, the shirt and pants are just painted onto these guys. And they're all like in great shape and stuff, but dude, they're walking around, and you could just see like full-fledged hog. Like, this guy comes walking towards us, and I'm like, oh my god, that's either the narrowest cell phone I've ever seen, or
Were they jeggings? Were they wearing jeggings?
I think they were white jeggings.
What type of software was it that they're selling?
Oh, it's some sort of dealer garbage where like you plug in a thing and it tells you like the VIN number and all that stuff of the car.
So why do they need a bunch of Kyles to help them like sell this?
I don't know. You got to hang a little rope out there,
I mean, did they were any of them pitching, or were they just hanging around the booth?
Oh, they're all pitching.
Come by.
They were doing a lot of like, they were doing
some
a lot
pitching,
of that, like,
but plenty pitching.
When dudes, they do that, like those muscly dudes do that thing where they clap, but they flex while they do it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's
The
kind of
whole
like they're
the pretending like, oh man,
It looks like the monkey clanging the cymbals.
That's exactly what it is.
The whole like, I can't clap normally because my arms are just too big.
Like, yeah, they're all kind of walking around there. They're doing a lot of like, yeah, and then doing the monkey cymbal clap, and then I don't know, shouting like, let's hear it for Software Solutions,
Oh
and I guess
God.
that's what, in the past they had women in similar circumstances doing that, but
Yeah, at least
that's
appreciate
where we're at
like,
now.
yeah, they seem to be like,
'cause-
consistent.
How the turntables.
But now women are actually allowed in the workforce, so they're like, well, maybe we should try to cater to the women who are working.
I mean, Casey,
yeah,
you're talking a lot more about this company than the other products there. So
I'm not arguing against the strategy. I mean, it clearly worked. It's the only one I remember. So
there it is. So they mission accomplished.
yeah.
Them and George Bush have a lot in common, apparently.
just waiting to hear where this is going.
No, that's it. George Bush just declared mission accomplished when it clearly wasn't. And
Oh, okay.
that's all. There's no more to that joke.
Okay.
Oh man. Well, I guess we should introduce our guest this week. We've been kind of sitting on this episode for a little while.
Yeah, our guest is Andy Prince from the band Manchester Orchestra, and if you've never listened to them, you are sorely missing out. Manchester is, God, They're fantastic. So I don't really know how I start. I got like connected with Andy Prince. I saw his Instagram and was just like, I, I think what social media is a weird space, right? Where you're just like, you can follow people and never really see what they're doing, or you're just like, all right, that's a picture of food. That's this. Andy is one of those people who you're just like, God damn it, he is fucking cool. Some people are just cool. And I've never aired that person, but maybe I'm just not in general, but my social media presence certainly doesn't live up to that. But following Andy, it's like skateboarding videos. He fishes all the time and just finds like, I don't know, it's not like
He's a
fishing.
guy that clearly like has found the things that he loves, and
Yeah.
he just
And
does them to the fullest, you
yeah.
know?
Because I don't give a shit about fishing. Growing up on Cape Cod, it was like you fished for bass, and it was like that's a boring, ugly fish, and I didn't give a shit. And then watching all of his videos, I'm like, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. It all just seems like like it actually, for the first time in my life, made sense why fishing is a sport and not just like something you do to catch something to eat that night. It was like, oh shit, there's like a lot of cool looking fish that you can catch and just kind of throw back in. It started clicking, and I was just like fascinated by his Instagram page for a while. So then also, I've just been a big fan of the band Manchester Orchestra for quite some time. So just getting a chance to talk to him about his life, his upbringing. He's a tried and true Florida man, and it was a blast. He was an amazing guest, and the conversation was a ton of fun.
Yeah. So if you're enjoying the show, leave us a review wherever you listen to it. Thanks to everybody who has done that. Don't forget, we recently did a guest episode with Boys Bible Study on their podcast where we talked about Left Behind 2 Tribulation Force, which was amazing. Talked about the beautiful courtship of Buck and Chloe, which it really like sets the standard for what courtship should look like.
It does. It does.
It made me
Christian dating.
reevaluate.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
It's
it
beautiful. It's
kind of
like
like
it's just like you're watching God's plan unfold. It was amazing.
I thought it was kind of depressing because I thought, God, my marriage is broken.
You know,
I was like,
you
when's the
skip some
last time
steps.
we made silly faces in a photo booth? I can't even remember.
It's been a few years for me. We were at a wedding once that had the photo booth to do the silly faces, and I think that was the strongest my marriage has ever been personally. With the
They have
big
like
glasses?
comically big glasses. Yes. Oh, I love orchestrated fun. But yeah, it was a great episode, ton of fun, lots of laughing. So their podcast is great. So if you haven't listened to Boys Bible Study before, if you like our show, you'll like theirs. They kind of go over like Christian cinema, which you thought was just Prince of Egypt and the Ten Commandments, but it turns out there's like an infinite number of horrible movies that shouldn't have been made. And they talk about those, and it's a blast. So check that out. And if you want to get in on the conversation, we have a Discord server where you can talk back and forth with a lot of cool people who grew up in similar circumstances. We trade music and memes and stories from the week and all sorts of things. It's a good time. So you can find the link on our social media. We're Linktree up and running now.
It will be by the time this comes out. So yeah,
I get
sure.
it. That's a
Or
big
like
project.
a day or two late, but this week, within the week. I know it's a huge project. I had to like copy and paste links and put them in, and it's taking me about a year to do it. So, but we're here. We're here.
Yeah. So get in on that. And without further ado, enjoy our conversation with Andy Prince.
Hey everybody, we are back with our guest, Andy Prince. What's up, Andy?
What is up?
Yo. So I think before we get started on anything, man, I just want to point out that there are some people in this world who are they just seem all around cool. And that's how I feel about following you on Instagram. It's like you skate, you're always fishing, you're touring, you just seem to have a pretty fucking cool life, and it's one of those ones that you look at and you're like, maybe if I made a few other choices in my life, I could spend my free time out on the water and living it up like that.
What kind of fishing do you do?
Gosh, I have a lot of hobbies. I mean, thanks for saying that, first of all. I really try to make it that way.
Yeah.
And I've worked a lot of crappy jobs throughout my life and done a lot of stuff. Spent a lot of time doing stuff I didn't want to do. And now and plus, most of the people I know, they do things they don't want to do to pay the bills or whatever it is to get by, and generally seem somewhat unhappy. And I'm not saying there's not tough times in life or times when you get depressed or down, but I try to mitigate that in any way I can and try to do active things mainly outside while I'm young, because I just know the amount of drinking I do, I'm not going to last very long. So
Yeah.
No, I'm
Someday
just
they're going to be able to just grow you a replacement liver on the side of a rat, and
I'm hoping for that. I'm actually banking on that solely.
But it'll be prototype, so that one's going to live outside of your body, and it'll make people around you feel uncomfortable.
It's just going to look like an aquarium filter. It's going to have that slow trickle noise of blood.
But yeah, I mean, I could spend this entire podcast talking about fishing, mainly because it's something I grew up doing where I'm at in Pensacola. But I moved away for 10 years. I lived in Nashville and, traveled there with a band to try to do everything I could in the music industry. And, finally kind of I got to the place after COVID where it was time to move. That city changed a lot. My wife actually loves it here where I'm from, and I miss my family. But down here is the Gulf Coast. So you have all this incredible outdoor. You have, the Gulf Coast itself is it has so many species of not only fish, but you can go out even a mile offshore and just see every type of insane wildlife. There's just dolphins jumping everywhere and sharks and manta rays. And so I like spending my time out there. And, but secondly, I've really nerded out on older guys and ladies that have become like legendary fishermen, particularly fly fishermen.
Okay.
And this has led me down a pretty wild road. There's a great podcast called Millhouse that I got into from this famous guy named Andy Mill. And he's this Olympic skier turned fly fisherman and won all these tournaments. But he's the type of guy that along his journey and all these tournaments, he's just one of those personalities that met every single person and remembered their name somehow, and then created this kind of, I think he realized all these people aren't going to be around forever. They're all getting older. And so his podcast is interviewing all those people. And the stories are unreal. Like, it's just an hour long, but it's all these people that are, were in the Keys, in the Florida Keys in like the 60s and 70s when that was just coming up. And there was also a lot of drug trafficking and wild partying and all these things. And it's just kind of a cool lifestyle that was, is never going to happen again. So to shorten it up, I'm fascinated with all of that. And I can kind of see myself being an older gentleman, hopefully doing not drug trafficking, but fly fishing and enjoying the outdoors. So
fly fishing is just like such a specific community of people.
It is.
Like, there's lots of people that drive a Toyota Tacoma and have a fish bumper sticker or something like that.
I got a Tacoma.
If they have more than 4, they're a fly fisherman.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And if they have a Salt Life sticker.
Oh yeah,
they're not a real fisherman.
Okay,
that's such a Florida thing.
It is.
The Salt Life thing. This is how deeply ingrained that Christian upbringing is in me, where I saw Salt Life stickers and thought that it was a Christian thing. That was my default guess, was like salt of the earth kind of thing.
Did you eventually peel yours off, or?
Yeah, it was awkward when people started asking me about, ocean things, and I'm like, I don't know, but let me tell you about.
I don't believe in the ocean anymore.
Yeah, so. But it's like, let me just tell you about. I don't know a lot about the ocean, but I can tell you about a well that will never run dry. And
I had a Calvin waiting on dry land. That was the route that I went.
Yeah.
You had a what? I'm sorry.
A little Calvin peeing on dry land.
Oh,
So I stick it to the terrestrial people.
nice.
I feel like fishing. So I grew up on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and when I like up until I was 13, and that was like, I mean, everyone fished around there. I would go with my dad occasionally, but
Mhm.
didn't stick with me. But then it's like when I feel like nothing stuck with me as a kid, and that's why I don't have any real hobbies now. But there's a lot like that, like outdoorsy ones where I'm like, I don't know, I missed it. It didn't stick out to me at the time, but then when I see people doing it in a way that's like, I don't know, like I see the pictures of all the fish you post, and I'm like, it's cool. Some of them are gigantic for one, and that's like the idea of reeling one of those things in sounds like a fucking sport. It's like it's not just like catching like a little bass, like that's like
Right. Right.
6 inches long or something like that, and throwing it back. Like feeling like there's like that a variety of fish that you could pull in. I think especially when they're like, some of them are just gorgeous instead of all just like gray with dead eyes, and you're like, well, I don't know.
They
I
are.
feel like if you're in Cape Cod, like you're probably closer to like scooping oily discharge out of a pilot whale's chest cavity or something.
Yeah, I mean, or just like hooking a seagull on your after you cast, you
just
Yeah.
baiting your hook with a French fry.
I've caught just on accident just about every bird species down here.
Oh no.
Pelicans, which are huge and terrifying, herons
Yeah.
and seagulls, of course. Just sometimes you can't help it when you're casting out. They'll like just having your line going through the air at the same time. There's this, doing thousands of casts a day, and then a bird flies into it, and you got to wrangle them in and grab their
Oh my
beak,
God.
and they're kind of terrifying. Like when you
Yeah.
really see one up close and
They're like
feel it.
pterodactyls.
Yes, it's very dinosaur like. And I don't know, we respect them too though, because you realize like they're not joking around. Like they could hurt you really bad if they wanted to. So I don't know.
So
Gotta respect the nature down here. It's a little terrifying sometimes.
yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot more things that could just kill you around there, and they won't think about it. Like I've always liked living in an area that doesn't have any. I don't think there's anything around me. Apparently, we have rattlesnakes sometimes. I guess I don't know. People make stuff up, I think, but a mountain lion was seen around here every once in a while. But now it's like you don't have to worry about pretty much anything.
So are you still in Cape Cod?
No,
Or-
I'm in central Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
still in that area, but
Right on.
Got black bears, right?
yeah, that they don't really fuck with people. They just, I don't know. But there's nothing dangerous. It's just really not very dangerous around here, and I've always liked that. So I remember when I was in Montana visiting, it was like I swam across a river, and when I was like halfway across it, someone yells like, "Watch out for rattlesnakes!" And you're just like, that's a really bad time to tell somebody to watch out for snakes. And then you get to the other end, and it's like all plants and reeds and stuff, and you're just like, everything feels like a snake at that point. It was awful.
Yeah.
I actually felt like I was like, that was probably the closest I've ever been to having like a real panic attack. Like terror came over me. But
Yeah.
but
I've
yeah,
always
so you're in
been-
Pensacola.
Yeah, Pensacola, which is right almost to Alabama. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been down here, but it's interesting. Especially from touring, I can't go anywhere without someone that doesn't have a cousin or a grandma or something that's affiliated or they have a tie to this place, which I love that, because there's just either, that they used to vacation here when they were a kid. Everyone knows that name somehow, and it's kind of that place. It's everyone down here's the web just goes so far as people being connected, and I think that's what kind of drew me back in.
Mhm.
The people down here are really excellent, and they're the real friend type that you have for life. It's hard, it's hard to find that everywhere, because a lot of people growing up here, they complained about it a lot. There's like, no, there's nothing to do. It's little Pensacola. And I understood that too. I was even, when I got a little older, I got out at a certain point, but if you just stayed here, you kind of had that feeling of like, well, maybe I'm trapped here. But once you're gone for 10 years, you're like, I want to go back there so bad. It's so simple. It's so easy. It's pretty. It's, I don't know. I'm not trying to like retire or anything yet. I might eventually go somewhere else, but for right now, it was the right move. So yeah.
That's like I someday I'm gonna end up down that region somewhere. I want to live somewhere where I can grow like any type of plant any time of year.
Yeah,
That would be like the dream.
this is the place for that for sure. It's very humid in the summer and very hot and miserable, but if you're outside on the water, it's not bad at all. It just depends on what you want to do. Winters are awesome though, like November through even January. Not most of the days, but there'll be periods of time where it's 72 and clear, and that's
Oh my God.
when the water's really clear. Looks like the Bahamas, white beaches. It's pretty sweet. I got pretty lucky, growing up here and just happened to, you know, be where my parents were at the time, and my dad's parents were military, and there's a big base here, and that's why they're here. And then my
Okay.
mom's parents were always from the South, and I've had a lot of history here. They used to have a bait and tackle shop downtown, and it's pretty wild. Yeah, but they all
Is the building still there?
no, the same series of buildings are, but it's changed so much. That's
It's been
actually
gutted.
the old downtown or whatever. The main drag here is in the area called Brownsville, and right adjacent to that is Brownsville Church, where I grew up going partially, where the revival was, and that's when me and my brother were mainly starting in like middle school age, started in the band there. And my brother's a drummer, I play bass, and that was like the majority of hours playing music in a really wild, culty, fun, extreme church. So
Can you give us a rundown on like the Brownsville revival? Because it sounds like it's a little more of an institution than I realized.
yeah, I mean, obviously it is for me. I do mention it, to people though, and for a lot of them know what it is, just because this was like it started in '95, and uh, there was just like this what they an outbreak or whatever, as God fell on '95, and then all of a sudden all these kind of spiritual movements were happening in the service, and people started hearing about it and moving here, or at least visiting here, like by the thousands. And this
It's unreal.
it was crazy. It was, I mean, the church itself probably held like 1,500, 2,000 people in the main building, but then they started having like tents and all these. It turned into every single night of the week there was church, which was pretty crazy. And it got to the point where it was exciting. The music was really good. Thankfully, there's all these people came down from Nashville, and they started making a lot of money, and so they could afford to pay the top musicians. I mean, that was one really great takeaway. But the worship in those types of churches would just go on for hours and hours, kind of at the beginning of the service all the way through. For it could be a 4 to 6 hour service, and you never really know what's going to happen. They're having people come up and getting delivered, and the preacher's laying hands on them, and it's the classic like shaking and falling on the ground type of thing, and screaming, and it gets weird really quick. But to me, I had seen so much of that growing up. It was like it really felt normal, and not until much later I realized that is not normal.
So were you going there frequently? Like, so, okay, 95 when it started, around how old were you? You said,
Let's see. Well, I mean, let's go back for a second.
yeah,
At that time, I was actually going to a different church on Sundays and visiting Brownsville once a week, because I was in the Royal Rangers, which is basically the church Boy
Hey,
Scouts.
no
shout out
way.
Jeremiah.
Yeah, I've only heard about those. I've heard about them a couple of times now, but I didn't realize that it was like after doing this and talking to people who went through it, I'm like, oh God, that was like it was a bigger organization than I had originally thought when I first heard about it and made fun of it.
It's like the Boy Scouts, but you get an anti-masturbation badge.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I actually had a good time doing that. We'd take camping trips and all that stuff, and but that was when I was a lot younger, like in elementary school, and when we started getting into middle school age, my family is musical starting out, and so at the time, my parents were actually going to this place down here called New Dimensions, which was is predominantly a black church. We were, among just a few of the white families that went there, and it was like pretty hardcore black gospel, which was really, really good music. And my brother, being a drummer, he got good at a young age and was even playing in church. He was like better when he was 11 years old than the grown man drummer that was there, which would always piss this guy off because everyone would want Matt to play. And my mom played organ, and my dad played guitar, so they were in the band, and they had a full choir and just this badass choir director that they were really strict about sounding perfect.
That's
Um,
cool.
It was good.
This wasn't that all are welcome kind of choir like the ones I had growing up. It's like you had to actually be good. Like,
Yeah.
no, we vet for talent here.
Yes, yeah. If you can't sing, you can't be a part of this. Don't even try. Like they took it very seriously, and yeah, it was really cool, But it was like classic kind of. It was the same thing. Very charismatic. They would get shout music going, and it's just a supercharged service where people, ladies are coming down the aisle and shaking all their jewelry off and like having some, it's kind of beautiful and terrifying at the same time, because you realize, like, I was just a little kid, but I was like, damn, like these people need a release. Like their lives, when people get stressed out and like have a lot of, there was a lot of families there that didn't have much money and probably worked really hard jobs, and they would get to church on Sunday, and that was time to like let it go. And then you get this shout music going, and and the preacher gets going, and it was cool because my mom would accent the preacher on the organ. Have you ever seen that? And God's gonna bring you into prosperity. Word! Like you have to time it perfectly. And so that was what my mom's job was, and she's this little white lady up there, you know what I mean? And so it was kind of cool.
She's kind of like the hype man for a rapper.
It's exactly right. And then my brother got to figure out how to follow that on drums too, and the way they would pump it up. And I mean, it would get you pumped up the way that they would get going about stuff, and like,
I bet, man.
It's time to turn your life around. You're like, yeah.
See,
I'm 8.
Yeah.
Stuff like that's cool when it's like it's just like a general, like, I don't know. I guess you could put it in the same category as something like your Tony Robbins types, right? Like it's
totally,
not,
yeah.
like if you
Motivational
use
speaker.
it as a force for good, and you're like hyping people up to actually take control of the things they have control over, like you can see it being a force for good. And then I think what we've seen and what gets a lot more airtime is like when it goes poorly. It's when it goes poorly, it's like very bad.
Yeah.
But people have been using that forever. And I think especially, I didn't grow up charismatic, but like just from the conversations I've had with the people I've met along the way, like that charismatic spirit has been in the black church forever. And then it seems like it's just one of those things that, I don't know, some of these white mega churches they take it a different direction maybe, but
yeah, it kind of happens everywhere. And there's some weird stuff that happened there too. I think my parents finally left because there was a speaker there that had come in, and they had like a big conference, and which I was really proud of them for this, because like we didn't have much money coming up, and my parents were really both had full-time jobs and were hard workers, and they provided for us great, but it wasn't like we weren't wealthy. And one of the speakers at the church was her main point she was bringing up. She's like, God wants to get you out of that station wagon and into a BMW. Everyone's like, oof. Yeah. And my mom was just put out by that. She was just like, I don't, this is not why I go to church. I don't want to hear, like, what if the station wagon is like what I need to have my family in? And it just got, it felt icky. So,
yeah.
That was a standing impression from when I was a kid, because I didn't know what to think about all that stuff. I was pretty young. So we're kind of moving around here. Let me recap real quick. Basically, that was like the middle stage of my church life, if that makes sense. But when I was really young, my mom's parents are really Southern, and my dad's parents are all from the North. And so you've got super Southern, kind of like sweet, the side of the family. They lived in Alabama at the time, like right north of Pensacola in the country. Grandpa loves fishing and hunting, and bought his like dream cabin and built it right there and on on 60 acres of land that the family had inherited after hundreds of years of working. And it was just a paradise for me and my brother, and because we could go out there, and my parents would leave us there for like a week at a time, and they would take us to these old country churches, and my grandpa played bass and sang, and my grandma played piano and sang, and they always were a big part of the church band. And this was like super old school Southern gospel. And that, that was like the opposite end of the spectrum from my dad's parents. Were really shrewd Northern, and they got into like heavy religion. And to be honest, my grandma eventually had some like kind of mental illness problems that when we were younger, and even at the time, we didn't think about it that way. It's not as like, people didn't talk about it as much like they do now. It's so prevalent that people, which is good. But she got heavy into this guy named Peter Ruckman, which was this like Bible Baptist, old school, pretty racist, like he would say pretty wild things on stage that would pertain to that. And he had this thing called drawing men to Christ, and he was actually an excellent artist and would work with chalk, and he would draw an illustration while he was preaching, but he would just be up there talking about all this. He is just this old curmudgeon kind of guy. And at the time, my parents, way early on, had gone to Brownsville when they were kids as well. And it was kind of a different church at the time. But
oh wow! So I didn't realize it had been was around. It was just coasting as like a normal ass church for quite a while.
Yeah, before all that happened, like my parents got married there, and then me and my brother, when we were really little, my grandma decided that church was, of the devil, and she got really into this Ruckman guy, and it was like really specific stuff, like if it ain't King James, it ain't Bible. Like there was, it's
now we're talking my language.
Yeah, and she had tracks taped all over her bathroom wall, and like she just got really obsessive about all of it. And when me and my brother would come over, my brother's 15 months older than me, so we're just really close in age, did everything together. I love my grandparents. We had some good times with them too. Sometimes they'd take us to go, feed seagulls or whatever at the beach. But most of the time they would take us over there and sit us in front of some type of like pre-recorded program. Another thing is she would tape everything off of TV. So there's just hundreds and hundreds of self-labeled VHSs everywhere, like a full library.
I did that with Pokemon episodes because
really?
I was at homeschool co-op when Pokemon was on, so I needed to take care of business.
Well, kudos to you for doing that at an early age. Like you're like, I'm going to make my library. Do you still have them?
No, God, no. They're probably taped over at my parents' house somewhere, but
that's awesome.
It was a great memory. And then the times that like, maybe the power went out while you were gone, or like it just like fucked up the timer that you had set on your VCR. Oh my God.
No. Devastating.
Yeah.
My grandma was like the tape wizard. So like we had several different things. Like we had the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, but it was always like she had taped over the same VHS so many times that it was kind of like pieces of it were sort of spliced with like an episode of Maury Povich that she recorded or something like that. It was not a precise art form. That's what kids today don't understand.
Yeah,
it was like everything is terrible supercuts before they were everything is terrible supercuts.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it was like.
There's still tons of those VHSs at her house that she's passed on. My grandpa's still alive, but we're gonna have to go through all of that later on when we clean that place up. It's gonna be very interesting.
That'll
Was
be a
it
trip.
was it full of the 70s and 80s, like here's what happens when you play Van Halen backwards on
Yes, exactly. That's exactly the vein of everything she had. It was like, she'd talk about Kurt Cobain and, all these like super obvious people, because that's what she was getting. She was feeding herself that stuff. She also was obsessed with the National Enquirer tabloid.
Oh, no way.
And that
I
was
didn't
She was a Bat Boy aficionado.
yes, exactly. Which is a total like a red flag thing. It's like, wait, so you believe that stuff too? I don't know if she fully believed it, but that was her source of entertainment. And it was all very strange because when, me and my brother would go over there to see grandma and grandpa, and they would put us in front of the TV screen and basically show us like one of those crazy videos like Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames, or there's like all these old like really hardcore terrifying things for a kid to watch. And basically they were trying to like indoctrinate us and make sure that we as kids were sent on the right path because my parents weren't doing it right. We're going to the wrong church, we're reading the wrong Bible. So it actually, once my parents we'd come home and be like, yeah, they made us watch this video, and of course that pissed my parents off, and they just want to drop their kids off at grandma and grandpa's and have like a night off, and we're over there getting indoctrinated with like wild shit. So
This is what 60 something people did before they had InfoWars.
yes,
Yeah.
It's
Well,
the same
that's what-
energy.
That was
Dude.
exactly what I was thinking. Dude, it's so funny you mentioned like the grandparents indoctrinating thing. My kids are young. My kids are 5 and 7.
Oh wow.
And well, like both my parents and my wife's parents are very in that like super conservative evangelical mindset, and it's like nothing overly alarming. I don't know if it'll ever require a conversation, but there's definitely moments where like my kids will say something and I'm just like, yeah, I know where you heard that, and you're not
Yep.
getting that here. So it's very it like bubbles in me a little bit. You're like, we need to have a conversation. And my wife is more even keeled. She's like, it's fine. Like they hear this occasionally and they live with us. Like think
Yeah.
about like when you learn, like my grandmother was a Democrat and we grew up very staunchly Republican. I remember hearing my grandmother say things and telling my parents, and it's like nothing my grandmother ever said influenced the way that I thought because of the home that I grew up in. So I don't know.
You strayed from the path eventually.
Eventually, but it's like I don't know.
think your
Kids
parents
definitely respond more. They'll obviously respond more to the things you do, but it does. Like you feel that like bubble up inside you when you hear about people telling you. But I feel the same fucking way when my kids have to say the Pledge of Allegiance in school too. So it's not just related to like Christianity. It's it's related to just being a parent, I guess, and wanting to like your kids to not be indoctrinated by certain things.
Yep. Well, those.
Do you remember if they
Go ahead.
did they have any videos of Mike Warnke?
I don't remember that name, but probably all of the above.
Yeah, I was just curious. He was like a big satanic panic guy that I didn't see any videos when I was a kid, but like I've learned more recently. And oddball, he had like kind of a curly Kenny Powers mullet, wore some weird clothes, but
It'd be a fun
claimed to be like
YouTube
an
hole to go down to.
ex-Satanist.
Oh, it
Oh
is.
yeah,
It's worth
it's
it.
so fun.
Yeah,
But-
y'all interviewed Christian Nightmares a while back.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite pages. I mean, I have, it's like what you're talking about, stuff bubbling up in you, especially when it affects your kids. We all have it like deep down if we come from the type of, weird background, but it's got to be interesting what you guys are doing because you got to be getting a lot of feedback, right? Or especially, Christian Nightmares too, because when I started seeing pages like this or like that one, some of it's kind of funny and whatever and just entertainment, but sometimes it hits a note and it's like, it can be very healing in a way. Because I was just most of my life, it was like it was not a joke. You know, it was very,
Yeah.
very. I didn't know it at the time, but it was just drenched in guilt and fear for most of my childhood for stuff that is like pretty normal human stuff. And when I got older, it made me angry because it's like I came online and you know, kind of like realized everything I believe or have spent time, you know, believing in and working in has basically just been told to me by an older person that acted like they knew what they had it together or like figured something out or had the answer. And I'm like, well, I'm a grown ass man now. I'm gonna ask questions and try to figure this thing out on my own. And it's not that I'm against one thing or the other. I just want to know what's true. So how do I
I
do
think
that?
what the part of that that like really got to me, you know, as I started to come out all that stuff is like learning that some of the things that I were taught as like you know, fact of course, but just like solid Christian doctrine passed down through millennia, you know, were kind of new. I mean like since, you know, we've been doing this, I mean, I never knew that the rapture was like something that really started, you know, that it was like an interpretation that started like a couple hundred years ago. I thought that the apostles were talking about the rapture, you know. I mean, stuff like that, or like the emphasis on like sexual purity that wasn't there like 50 years ago. I mean, it's just weird to find out that the things that were like such a central part of the Christianity that you were, you know, spoon fed, it's like this hasn't even been around that long. Like people didn't care about this 100 years ago.
That's amazing. Yeah. Not like 2 lifetimes ago or something like that. And you're right. That was those two things you just mentioned are like two of the heaviest things, you know, having to deal with growing up. Cuz that was I mean, going through puberty was a nightmare. It's like having a first, you know, any type of interaction with a girl was like I just was so ridden with guilt, and so was she. Like my first real girlfriend that we were of age to. It's like I just want to touch your boob, but I don't
Yeah.
want to burn in hell.
Did you have the heartfelt uh come to Jesus moments afterwards where
Every
you like
time.
promised each other never again will I touch your boob. Not once, not ever. And by God's will we're going to be strong and
Yeah.
then that night
6 hours later. Yep. There we are fooling around. I hated that though.
This will
It's
be part of our testimony when we're older and married and have 12 children.
well, I mean, like it's funny now, but it's so frustrating to think about for real because it really ruined a lot of just times that I could have just been a kid and not had to have so much of that like put on guilt between me and just like someone that I wanted to have a first experience with without that.
Right.
And I envied the kids that got to have that. They're like these, you know, a lot of kids I went to school with or ended up I was skateboarding a lot back in the day and like those kids not a lot of them went to church and they just kind of had either broken families or someone that didn't, you know, teach them religion and they were
Yeah.
like cussing and making out with girls and doing whatever and they just seemed so happy.
I know,
And
right?
I was like, man, you can't be doing that, you know? And they're like, why? What are you talking about? And it's just so weird because I was so steeped in it that I couldn't see outside of that, you know, my life. I had it together. I had the answer and all these kids are I'm just trying to save them from burning in hell forever.
Right.
And
And you don't have a good reason for why, like, what, who cares? And you're like, well, it's wrong. Like, why? It's in the Bible. And it's
yeah,
like, you don't really know. You just know that it's like, you know that it's wrong in the same way that you like know that grass is green. Like, you don't know.
you
You're
don't
just
know.
like, this just is something you say and you believe it's true. And
And you're
it's funny how much,
suspicious of anyone who says otherwise. Like you have to
Totally.
guard your heart, you know? So like
Yeah.
you always are on edge and like not 100% comfortable around people who aren't of the exact same persuasion, you know?
Yeah. I
I realized
remember
how much of that was like deeply entrenched in me when I have a foster son. He's 19 now. He's been living with me on and off since he was 11, but
oh, that's cool.
he moved in like on a permanent basis when he was 16. And, you know, want to hang out with girls, have girls over, and all this stuff. And like that's when I realized like how much you think you escape it more than you really do in some ways, because all of a sudden now that I have to think about this stuff, and of course you want to like you have I had uncomfortable conversations about consent and protection and shit like that, and I wanted to kill myself afterwards. But it was like it's like I just am like, oh my god,
Oh,
I don't even know if like what the right way to do this is. I still feel uncomfortable about
oh,
the idea that this could be happening under my roof, and it's like,
right.
He's
but like
literally just
why?
holding hands with a classmate, and you think you're like living an episode of Euphoria.
Oh my god, dude.
But it's like it really like kind of held a mirror up to myself in a way where I'm like, oh, this is still a big part of me, even though like maybe for myself, if I was like, I mean, I've been married for going on 14 years at this point, so it's like I didn't deal with that. But even some of my friends who grew up in it, who ended up divorced or left like the faith later on, and in their 30s, they're like in having relationships with people or just having consensual sex with people that they don't plan on seeing again, and you're
Right.
just like, they're like, that felt like awful for like, oh my god, I thought I was done with this, like I thought I moved past it, and then the adage that we had was like, the reason you're becoming more comfortable with it is because God's just turning you over to your lustly desires, and you're actually just like, that's just confirmation that you're going down a dark path, and then those thoughts come back in,
Oh my
and
god,
it's like
yeah.
so circular, and it's like really hard to escape.
Yeah. I, that's a great example of like, no matter, at least for me, I can't say this for everybody, but it never leaves you, Like, I think just from it being ingrained when you're so young, it's that guilt and all those weird feelings on pretty much every step in life. It's not that I haven't conquered it in my mind and kind of
Hmm.
realized that's not the right way to think about that. You have to, you have to move forward. You have to test things. And yes, I don't know the exact answer, but at least I'm willing to admit that now. But it still never leaves you. And that's kind of the scary part of it. And I don't, I would just never want to put that type of thing on anyone else. Um, and, you know, I don't know. It's really strange to think about and talk to other people that haven't gone through that as well, because they don't totally
Yeah.
understand it. But then there's probably more people, at least around my circle of friends, that have, especially musicians. It's funny, most musicians I know that are in bands now and that tour, all of them played in church, and a lot of them went
Oh,
to
really?
really, kind of like heavy culty churches like I did. So at least we can bond on that.
It is bonding, man. It brings people together at this
Yeah.
point in life. You're like, oh, it's so nice to know that someone understands the first 20 years of my life and the turmoil that I
Yeah.
went through.
Yeah,
Talking
definitely.
about like those videos and stuff like that, is there anything that like immediately replays in your head when you think about watching those?
Watching which ones? Which videos?
Like the ones that your grandma showed you, or just any of that like apocalyptic sort of
Oh
fire
my
and
god.
brimstone Christian media stuff.
um yeah, there's like little snippets of it, that cuz they were so cheesy now that I think about them. I mean, it was like super low budget, like 80s looking, but there was actually something terrifying about that. You know the way like a really bad horror movie
It's like
is
80s
so,
porn without the porn.
yeah, it's like so
Just
bad
the
that it's
acting.
actually scary. S- For more, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but as a kid it just scared the shit out of me. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to feel that way. But it held on because I for most of my life I was like actually scared of doing bad things because I was going to burn forever in this terrible place. And you know, the other option was I had to admit that Jesus was the Son of God embodied, and that he died for us. And if I did that, and then I get to go to this like golden palace with all the good people. And I just, as time went on, I just kept thinking of through that, and because I was sold out for it. I was like, "Yep, that's the way things are," And then when I finally, me and my brother left the church, probably like early high school, late middle school, and we had been doing these big church conferences called Branded by Fire. And
Branded by Fire.
yeah,
I haven't heard of those ones. I went to a choir the fire or two.
okay, that sounds familiar. Where was that?
New England. I don't know if they were that, but I think they were all over. They might have been all over the place. I think a choir the fire was like a linked to some other national ministry. But
Was it the same though? Because this was like just a ton of different youth groups traveling to spend like a week in Pensacola and go to church every day. And there's
this was in Pensacola. No, it
yeah,
wasn't. So it's different, but it's probably a very. I mean, I can't imagine it being much different. Something about the way these things are run. Then it never. No one was like inventing the way this was done. It was like
yeah.
it's a bunch of youth groups travel to a place and they sit around and they watch someone tell them why they need to get rid of their
A bunch of tweens cry during a Cutlass set.
get rid of your non-Christian t-shirts, get rid of your non-Christian music, buy our Christian
Buy our
merch and
t-shirts.
music.
Oh man, yeah.
It's all the same.
Yep. So we were the band for every year. We'd have it every summer here. We did it I probably did it for like 5 years, and it was excellent for us because there'd be like a couple thousand kids, showing up to these things, and we're like, we're rock stars, dude. We're so
And this was
cool.
in high school?
This is like late middle school, early high school.
Okay, because I want to just clarify, because you said you left the church early high school. Did you leave it as like we're done with this, or you left the church you were in to go do this thing?
No, what happened is this this conference that went on for years, we actually left officially because of one. It was the last one that we played at, and we had a really bad interaction with the staff at our church, which we'd been playing in the youth group for years and years. And basically, we were getting to the point where we were coming of age, and we were able to. My brother was 16 at the time, I think. So we had to drive and we had to pay for gas and we needed jobs. And like we were spending all of our time at church. It was Monday night. We had cell group, which is a smaller, they'd break apart the entire youth group into little cells, and you'd pick someone's house, and we'd go there and eat brownies and Doritos and pray. And it was actually, it was fun, but it was like it took a lot of time. It was every week. Tuesday was rehearsal for Wednesday night church. It was band practice because our worship team was actually really, it was really good. It was really well practiced, and I'm thankful for that because I got so many hours in. Wednesday night service that would go on forever, and then of course you've got Sunday as well, which we did like a youth ministry in the early morning, and then the second service, and it was like my whole life was just centered around church. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of need a job. I kind of need to get paid at some point. And so we had talked to the staff at our church and months before this conference, and we're like, look, we've been doing this for free for the past couple of years, so I was just seeing if there's something in a budget to like supplement our time. And they were like, absolutely, we're going to get you guys squared away, taken care of. And months roll by, and then we get time to play, and we're all prepared and have practiced. And through the grapevine, I hear there wasn't enough tickets sold to the conference. They had to strike some of the different things because of the budget, and one of those things was paying the musicians.
It's like getting
and
stiffed at the door.
yeah, and no one was telling me that. I just heard it. So I did.
They
kind
weren't
of
forthright about the financial situation.
I know, right? So simple, but
I love
just
the idea of them sitting you guys down though and being like, "Look, kids, money doesn't grow on trees. It shows up in bowls once a week by the thousands, and we can't give you any."
Yeah, it's all for us. No. What was funny is I at the time I was pissed, so I called the staff and was like, before there's any other talk about this, I would like to just sit down with you guys and figure out what's going on. And we went to breakfast with them, with some a bunch of staff members we'd worked with for years, and they are friends, and kind of got into the gritty of the conversation. And it's like a couple of them just like turned on us basically, and we're like, you guys are not doing this for the right reason and blah blah
I bet
blah.
all of their
And
asses were getting paid, dude.
yeah, I mean, well, it was just it was just kind of gross, and I forgive those people at this point. They were just so stuck in that world, and it was just sad because I was like, well, based on principle, you told us you're going to do something, and now you're pulling out, and then on top of that, you're basically making me feel bad for asking for something you told me you're going to give me because I'm not spiritually in the right place and I'm not doing it for the right reason for the kingdom or whatever. So it just became apparent. We eventually had to go to the head pastor. It was gross. It was like asked him and figured it out because then my mom was involved and she's like, you can't, they're not going to do this to my kids. And we ended
Oh
up
my
he ended
God.
up paying us like partial, like just based on principle, what we needed to get covered. It was not, dude, we're talking like I think we may have made $400 on this entire week. Like it was like that. So that's why I was even more like shitty. So
Yeah.
we just wanted to be there and do it, but we just were broke. So so that really put us out, and then we were trying to like we were trying to turn our worship band into an actual rock band at the time anyways, and we were like we were growing up a little bit, so we wanted to get out of the church and go do other things and still be a quote Christian band or whatever, but not confined to the youth group band. And that turned into a big thing as well. It just got nasty by the end of the conference where the the new youth pastor, which is another story, came in. And this is at like the last service. He called everybody that's musicians into the room, and he goes, all right, guys, next Tuesday, we're going to have auditions for the church band. And
I love the new youth pastor.
yeah, and we're all sitting there looking at each other.
Amazing.
We're like, we are the church band. What are you talking about? We've been here for years. But he was, we knew what he was saying. He's basically like, we're going to now open it up to anybody else that wants to be in this band. And so
We need more people who don't want to get paid.
exactly. So we just all looked at each other. We're like, peace. So
Yeah.
we talked about it some afterwards, the guys, but that were in the band and spent a lot of time together, but we just kind of fizzled out, and I never went back to church after that.
The
And
new youth pastor.
That's a pretty cold break.
Like at any given church, the new youth pastor comes into it like a high school basketball coach that thinks that he's going to turn the team around, and eventually there's going to be a Disney movie about him. Like the new youth pastor comes in and he's like, I'm about to shake this place up.
yes.
Well, and usually it's a person with zero life experience that's fresh out of college that basically drank their way through final exams and stuff like that. And now it's time to get serious and spiritual with a bunch of teenagers.
Yeah. Yep.
The new youth.
Go ahead.
So
sorry.
my older brother, sorry, man. My older brother's 15 months older than I am, too. Him and I were real close growing up, and dude, he was driving. He was still living at home at the time. This is when I think I was like in college, but the youth group I was part of had a new youth pastor, and my brother fizzled out on the whole Christian thing, like the evangelical go to church stuff than before I did, and like, God, he was like, I might be getting some of the story a little bit mixed, but basically, like, he was driving behind this youth pastor. Like, so my parents, my family, very active in it. My sister was part of the youth group. So everyone knew my family, even though my brother wasn't going to church anymore. And he was driving behind this guy, and he felt like my brother was driving behind him like too close. So he pulled over and then let my brother pass. And then he didn't realize it was my brother at the time, but he did when he passed. So he followed him. He followed my brother home.
Oh boy.
And like followed him up the driveway, got out, and like tried to lecture him about like, my wife and baby are in the car and you were driving way too close. It's right. My brother was probably one of the least reckless drivers I've ever met. Like, pretty cautious guy, not really going out of his way to do anything crazy. So that's the only story I remember about the guy who replaced my youth pastor there. It was just like, what a weird thing to do.
Yeah, like intimidate a child
Yeah.
in their own driveway.
Gonna follow you home because you drove too close.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird, man. They're all people, and it took a long time to figure that out.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of it got kind of extreme, and I use that word because when I was in the heat of all of this, we got one of those new youth pastors like you're talking about that's going to come in and shake everything up. It's not the same guy that told us that we have an open audition next week. But at the time, he was like super flashy and came in, and it was seriously like Kenny Powers or something coming in there. Like they had these motocross videos of fireworks and all this stuff, and like here's the new era, and to be honest, it was fun because and it was exciting. There was as not spiritually, but like as just being a part of something like that. Like they were giving away Xboxes for whoever brought the most people to church next week. I mean, they're just like throwing Xboxes out like no big deal. And that's right when
Amazing.
Xbox was like the coolest thing that had ever come out.
Incidentally, an Xbox cost as much as they paid you when they couldn't afford it.
Oh,
Let's save more souls.
Can I have one of
That's what
those so I can
asked.
sell it at a pawn shop and make gas money? But it worked. That was the crazy thing. And then hundreds of kids started coming to this youth group, and they must have been paying this guy so much money from like the head church. He drove a Plymouth Prowler. Do you know what that is?
I don't.
Oh, yeah.
Please
No,
Google
it's one of the
those.
most. It's like an automotive abomination.
I'm Googling it right now.
Totally is. Yeah, Google it. Google a yellow one. He had a yellow one. And I remember one of the like prizes.
It's like for dudes who do vape tricks.
It looks like a vape on wheels. It really does. Like if they made a Prowler vape, I would buy it just as a joke and smoke it all the time.
like I would. You got to be rolling up on the hookah lounge in that thing.
Yeah. This guy was ultimate cool guy, like leather jacket, youth pastor. He drove that thing around town. He was so extreme. I mean, he shouldn't have been a youth pastor because he was, that world was, I think, easier for him to kind of get into, but he should have been some type of like
he's like a sales manager,
like entertainer or comedian or something. He was like a mixture of like Chris Angel and Ricky Bobby or something. It was really weird.
Oh my God.
Whole Andrew Tate in a Plymouth Prowler.
Yeah.
I've never seen a. I can't get that out of my mind. God.
Yeah, I'll send you a poster
I
of it.
can't imagine a real person driving this. It's insane. It's an insane vehicle. It looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like a bullet car.
It's like a PT Cruiser Sport.
It is. Yes, exactly.
Oh God.
So that was him, and I still like that guy. Like, if I saw him tomorrow, it's not like he ever really did anything bad. He was in a position to make a lot of money. I think the church offered him a ton of money, like a salary position, and he took it and blew the youth group up as big as he could, and it actually worked. So it was fun at the time because we were doing all these crazy church camps in the summertime, and there's tons of kids coming and pretty girls everywhere. So it was all the guys would show up too, and we had this huge youth group.
It's like cover charge.
We talk about this like, especially I have a few friends, or at least my buddy Brandon I go fishing with all the time. We'll like be out on the kayaks and kind of start talking about the old days of what actually happened there. It's just like dying laughing. Like it doesn't seem real, and you couldn't really write it. It's kind of like we were talking about the youth camps we had. One of the games that we had at this youth camp was they called it Amazon Woman. And
I like where this is going.
They basically, it started out where there's all these different teams. So each, we're broken into different colored teams. I'm not kidding. They put down a tarp in the middle of a field and put baby oil all over it. And and had all the girls cluster up together in the middle of the tarp and lock arms like a giant pile of girls. And then they would have the other team of either girls or guys try to pull them off of each other until there's only one person left. And I guess there was a time limit or something. But they're all, pulling each other's clothes off. Basically, they're lathered up in baby oil, and all of the other dudes are just standing around like this, just like, oh my God, this is the greatest summer camp of my life.
It's just a circle of guys with obvious erections in their bathing suits.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God. What,
Dude,
dude?
about like weirdly, like oddly horny youth group games a few times, like where you got to pop a balloon without using your hands, like with a partner, and it got really strange. It was one extreme or the other. Either, it was like overtly sexual, weird games like that, or it's like you're wearing a suit and tie as you like jump off a platform onto the blob.
Yeah.
Like two kinds of church camps out there.
There really is. And there's certain types of horny too. And horny church camp kids are a whole different level.
It's next level. Like
what is it? It's
a lot of wet dreams simultaneously happening. I think, how like they talk about how like music aligns people, and when you're at a show, your heartbeat syncs up with the people around you. I think at youth camp, your wet dreams all happen at the same time.
Yeah, that's like they
You're having
the
the same
dumpster
dream
out front, and you just deposit your sleeping bag on the way out. You know,
that's good.
It's like one of those crinkle tunnels that you give your cat.
You're like, I'm not peeling that thing apart. It's going on the dumpster. Okay.
You have to shake it off your hand because it's just completely stuck to it.
God, yeah. So that changed my life forever.
How sold are you throughout this whole thing? Like, are you still like devout throughout this whole process? Like, when did your personal commitment to Christianity change?
Did it take a second after when you left and never went back? I assume it took a second for you to be like your beliefs didn't change when you made your break from the church.
No, yeah, that's a good question. It was definitely a really slow process of once I got out of the church band, I was in Pensacola at the time, and me and my brother still wanted to play in a band of some sort because we were the rhythm section, and we could have put some guys together or whatever. And we still wanted our like youth group band to turn into a rock band, but dude, it was like it was not good. It was like butt rock, like very, I think we played one show, and our singer luckily quit the band before the show, and so we played it instrumentally. And I'm so glad that he didn't sing, because it was just I love the guy, but it was radio butt rock, like with Christian lyrics. It was just the nightmare. So
just for a point of reference, like when did you graduate high school?
2006.
Oh, okay. So you're right in there with us then.
Yeah.
Were you into Christian music at all, like growing up?
Hell yeah. That's one thing that I am very grateful for is DC Talk. Is that band changed my life, and I still listen to those records and love them.
I do too.
That has
Jesus
to be the through line
Supernatural.
of this podcast. It's
everyone still loves DC Talk. Yeah.
Yes.
Good. They should. They're great.
That's the takeaway that I've gotten, because I didn't get into them. I just didn't. I guess I just didn't get into music. I didn't start trying to listen to music until I was in high school.
Yeah.
So I missed it, and the amount of people I've talked to who are like, it's like DC Talk. I would love to talk to one of those people. Actually, we haven't really even tried to reach out to them, but
that were in the band.
We talked to Kevin Max for a minute.
Oh, yep. Nice.
That's right. Yeah.
How was that?
We went
not
back and forth for a while, and
recording.
then he just decided, like, he hadn't done any. He kind of was like, I don't feel like doing any podcasts, and he hadn't really done any. He did a couple. I don't know. It was kind of weird. It just went back and forth for a while.
When he left the faith, like officially, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but just the amount of people who still talk about them who have also like, I think that's what's cool about them is like it was obviously like kind of cheesy Christian lyrics on a lot of levels, but then everyone who listened to them who isn't Christian anymore still talks about them and the influence they had, and
Yeah.
it's cool. I mean, I don't think you'd get that with a lot of other Christian bands, you know.
No way.
I don't know, bro. Do you want to talk about Skillet? I only did Christian rock growing up, so I liked all of them.
Yeah. There used to be a festival down here called Grace Fest that we'd go to every year on the fairgrounds that had every single one of those bands. It was like Skillet and Audio Adrenaline and Newsboys and DC Talk, and I mean, you name it, all of them. Very familiar with all that, but DC Talk was the best. It was kind of cool. Like, I realized like all the guys in Manchester, they had a kind of a similar upbringing, but we could at least connect on DC Talk, and we all found out we love that together. We're like, yeah, this is gonna work out. But then we've talked to other bands that didn't have the church background before, and you try to bring that up, and like if you have any outsider in the room and someone starts like rapping Jesus Freak or whatever, or like singing any DC Talk lyrics, and then everyone joins in, and then there's one guy that never heard of them before, they're like, what the hell is going on? Like,
Yeah,
they just have never heard of that. You know what I mean? So I think we got lucky to know what that band is, because apparently half the world doesn't.
yeah, I guess that's a share. So is like a Christian background a shared, like it was just a coincidence that you shared with a lot of those guys?
Yeah. The drummer Tim
so funny.
is actually, I mean, he was born in Rhode Island, but he actually grew up in Pensacola as well. His dad's still down here, and we just had a lot of mutual friends. Those guys or at least Tim was a little bit older than me, but as I came up playing, in different indie bands, and we just kind of all reconnected later. So I've been with those guys for 10 years, which is pretty crazy. But we just clicked, it just worked out, and it certainly has a huge, weight to it that we all have that background to share. And a lot of those guys are like, still in the faith, but they're not. It was really nice meeting them, because after being out of the church for so long, I found out that they're Christian guys, but they were so nice and so normal and so not like hyper religious and crazy about it or forcing it or judgmental. I was like, that's what I missed out on. I almost got to the point where I had seen so many bad examples. I was just like, I don't want to be a part of this. But, I also appreciate the people that are in the faith that are like still good people, and that it does good things in their life. And if that's the way they want to live it, then I support that. That's their journey,
100%.
Yeah, it's like when you realize that there's a different way to do it that's less intrusive, and provides a level of meaning. It's something that you don't see growing up in the evangelical sphere, really. No. So your let's jump back to like your initial like the beginnings of your exit, like as far as belief goes. Do you have an idea of where that was?
Yeah, I would say after the whole, we left the church as far as playing music, we started a band, or it was already an established band, but me and my brother started playing for this guy named Jesse that had started a band called the Gills. And it was like super heavy Beatles influence, but it was like really happy, kind of hokey music. But then when we started playing it, we would just play really loud like we always did, and turned it into kind of more of a rock and roll band. And the mixture of those two things were great. And then we started playing bars and clubs around Pensacola, and it was like one of the most freeing experiences, because from one of the first shows, people just latched on to it. It was something fun to do. And I hadn't played a real rock show before. I was always playing in worship bands and trying to like understand what that experience is like. But you're always, not playing original music. You're playing worship songs and trying to make them rock songs. And that's not a good mix.
Not quite the same.
Yeah, so I just was like, I was sold on it from the beginning. We played one show in this old place called Sluggos down here, which every band ever has played. It's like this cool little hub here and little crusty room full of sweaty kids, and they were all hopping around and stoked. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. But then we eventually started playing more and more, and then we needed money, and we found out we could play bar gigs and play cover songs as well for like 3 or 4 hours and save up our money and go on tour with it. And that was like a hack that we used for years. But when we started going to the bars and stuff, I was underage. I was like 20, 19 and 20. So I couldn't legally drink, but the bars we went to wouldn't check because we were the band. And that was great. And I had never partied, you know what I mean? And I had never smoked weed. I had never really drank. I think I'd tried it, but never got real drunk. And there was just a big part of me that was like, I have to go taste what is out there and know, and I'm going to feel bad about it. I'm going to feel guilty about it. I'll I'll pray for forgiveness, but like I'm going to go taste the world for a while. And that kind of brought me down a journey of just meeting tons of people and with different perspectives. And I'd realized how much of a bubble I was in for most of my life. And it just changed everything. And basically I've been on that type of journey since. And it's just slowly taken layer and layer off of all of that, like, you know, preconceived notions about other people and what their spirituality is, and the fact that they're doing the wrong thing or going to go to hell and all this. It's amazing how long it took, and luckily I'm alive at this age, and I can more comfortably just be like, look at someone and go, I don't know. I don't I don't have the answer. I don't need to have the answer right now. I've had the answer my whole life and it didn't make me happy, and I'm okay with that. Like, I don't you can't look at me and tell me that you know what happens when we die. I don't care which religion you're in or how much theology and all of these things, how much knowledge you have. I understand that's your faith. I get that. If you can't look at me and say I don't know, then there might be something wrong with you.
Yeah, there's no reason to trust that.
Yeah,
Even to preface, like, this is what I believe, but I don't know that. It's like
exactly.
there's not even that level of comfortability. I remember having conversations with people being like, "No, I know." And they're like, "No, you don't." I'm like, "No, I do."
That's
And they're
how
like,
I
"Well,
was.
and they're like, "Well, I know that that's not true." I'm like, and then your brain starts fucking short circuiting. You're like, "How? Well, I know that what you think you know, you think you know. I know." And then it's like, what are we doing?
We
It's
were
like
taught that that was
toddlers.
conviction. Like conviction is to like insist in the face of resistance that you did know for sure. And it was kind of a fake it till you make it sort of thing, because I don't know that I ever really felt it in my bones that it was true,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted so bad to feel that way that I mean, I would have said it to anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Is I really wanted it to. I like back in the day when people were speaking in tongues and people were going through all the spiritual motions and doing all this stuff. I was like, I want that. I want to be sold out. I want to feel whatever they're feeling, and I would go down and I would try to receive the quote gift of tongues, and I'd have people lay their hands on me, and I would just be 100% in, like, and I didn't feel anything, and it never happened. And then I thought maybe God, didn't choose me. I'm not chosen in that way. So I kind of felt bad about myself, and I kept trying, and um, I at least know I exhausted that. I was like, I I was fully 100% willing to just give up everything and live that life. And then, looking back on that now, it's just interesting. At least I can say that, like, I witnessed some very interesting things,
Dude, I
and
fucking love the way you just phrased that. Like that
mhm,
you exhausted it. Like that you
yeah,
didn't not like because people will be like, well, maybe you didn't try long. Like, dude, you just know. Like
yeah,
especially with what we're told. We were told that like all you have to do is give yourself like they made it sound so simple. Like if you just give your heart over to this and everything will be great and God will save you and God will give you God wants to give you these gifts. He's just waiting for you to be able to receive them. And it's
Right.
like, bitch, I tried to fucking receive these forever, my
Forever.
entire life. Like
Mhm.
I know that I was up until mid 20s, even late 20s, like still like I I'm here. I'm still trying. Like maybe some things are changing, but like I'm here and I'm trying. And like there's this it's like a story I'll probably butcher a little bit, but it's like this story it's called The Invisible Gardener. And just the idea is that like these two people walk into I've told this on the podcast before, but it's these two people are walking through the woods and they come to this clearing and it's like a perfect garden. And they stake it out for like over and over again. And they can't there's no gardener. And they're like, well, maybe so then someone's like because this garden looks perfect, like there has to be a gardener. And someone's like, I just don't think there is. We've seen no evidence of a gardener. I just think maybe this happened. And well, maybe the gardener's invisible. So they set traps. And it's like, well, maybe the gardener's this. And it's like the idea of this, the point of the story is basically like you just keep qualifying this gardener. And it's like they equate that to God. Like, let's just keep qualifying. God's perfect and designed everything. Well, God didn't respond here because such and such. And then, well, this
Yeah.
didn't happen because such and such. And you qualify this God until it's essentially ineffective in your life and but you still get to like hold on to this idea that it's true. You just keep coming up with reasons with why it's not working for you. And I just that story spoke to my life a lot as I got older, where it's just like I think that's what I've been doing. Like
Mhm.
I keep trying to make this concept of God that I have fit into my life, and then when things change I'm like, well, maybe God's more like this, and then I change it, maybe God's more like this. And I mean, I don't think I've abandoned this concept, like a concept completely in some ways, and I still have like a connection to the Christian tradition in my personal life. But I'm like, that story has really changed the way that I've explained or thought of, and kind of released me from feeling like I need to make this work for or make sense to anybody else. It's just
Yeah. Yeah. That's good, man. It took me like I know you guys know this too, but the way church felt, it's still this way. I hear a lot of like, sermons online and clips and different things. And one thing that kind of set me back in life, I felt like, was the mentality of everything that you do here on earth is really just for what is going to be in the afterlife. It's like store up your
Mhm.
treasures in heaven, or however you want to put it. And that gave me a weird mindset about my life, as if it wasn't actually that important. Because I remember a guy explaining it to me one time. He's like, eternity is a circle, and it keeps going round like this forever and ever. And your life is a tiny blip on that circle, and that's it. And I was like, oh, so it's, and me, I was like, so it's not actually that important. It's just this little flash in the pan kind of thing. And really, it's all about eternity. So I'm going to act minded in that way. And it diminished all like the importance of what is happening second by second in my life and the people around me. And stepping away from the church as well helped me realize, like, I don't know what's going to happen. And so that means there's a possibility that this is the only thing. I've never wanted to admit that because it's a scary thing to admit. It's a scary thing to think when you die, the lights are out and that's it. You know what I mean? And that's to me just it's so even saying it now, it gives me the chills, because my entire life I could never admit that and say something like that without being like, that's blasphemous towards God, or that is, you know, um yeah. Anyways, I'm willing to admit it's a possibility. You know what I mean? Because I don't know.
Right.
It's not because that's what I want to happen, and I don't live my life in the way that is the definite truth, but I do live my life in a way that that's a possibility. So my point is looking around and seeing, like, I have a very, very short life. We all do. And when it comes down to it, it's going to happen really quickly. I've had friends pass away. I know that that's a possibility. at an early age as well. So I really want to take my time here and be careful with what I do and the relationships that I have, and try to be a really good person and do the right things in life while I'm here, and not do it just because I'm trying to like score points elsewhere. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
why I'm doing it, you know? And that was it was at least helpful for me as a, growing up a little bit, because I'm like, I need to focus on my wife and be a good husband and listen to what she's saying, and like stop trying to score points with God. You know what I mean? Like, that can all happen at the same time if you have faith and that you can do it your own way. But I've just seen a lot of people that everything that they have in their life, they attach it so hard to their religion and to God. And God is saying this right now, and God is doing that. And it's like, I think you're actually getting off track of what's right in front of you. I'm not saying you can't do both of those things and give the honor to God in everything that you do, but it just gets, at least for me, it was getting to a scary place to where I was not thinking about I was thinking about heaven as more of a reality than my actual life. And that's all my goal was, to not burn forever and to go to this crazy palace in the sky and get in, and then I'll be good. And like, it's just totally an insane way to live.
Pause a wheel.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's almost less of, it's like, it's about that. It's about wanting having the palace in the sky, but you're not even, you're not motivated by good things. You're motivated by more or less the fear of the alternative. It's
Totally.
like, because when you think about heaven, you're like, I don't know how to even make this sound like it could be fun to anybody. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way to communicate this concept in a way that sounds cool. Yeah, you just live there forever,
Right.
and God's there, and you're like,
And
that's cool. And you're like,
You
yeah,
you
God, you just
sing
worship him.
"Our
And you're
God
like,
is an awesome God" as around forever.
Forever and ever.
it's like, it's almost, it's like one level above hell. Like, hell is like constant pain.
Yeah.
Heaven is just eternal discomfort because you have to sing the same stupid fucking song for the rest of your goddamn eternity.
Oh.
It is funny how people go two different directions on that. You know, it like as you get older, you see those manifest in like your friends and stuff. Because I mean, even aside from spirituality, like you have the friend that saves every penny he makes. Like he doesn't leave town, he doesn't buy anything. I mean, literally just like banks money forever.
Yes.
You know, and then I guess I don't know. Maybe he has a kid, and that's where it goes when he's dead. You know, or you have the other friend who like is always in like financial peril because they got a tax return and they financed a dog for 3 times the amount of the tax return.
It
Yeah.
sounds like a very specific story.
I'm
Yeah.
not calling anyone out.
Obviously not.
Dude,
Yeah,
I
you're
don't know.
right.
I know we've had you for a minute. Do you have a little bit more time to
Yeah,
for
I'm
us to
good.
shift into I want to ask you some Manchester questions,
Go for it. Yeah.
or just generally when your life started shifting towards like career musician, because that must have been such a I know it's always like a slow burn when, like, for musicians,
Mm-hmm.
you like just chasing and chasing, and it's like a constant grind. And then like I almost want to imagine things start probably going in the like that direction before they even settle in. Like, you don't get too comfortable, right? You're
Yeah.
just like, oh, holy shit, I'm actually moving towards this. Like, what was that? What was that like? Or when around? I guess around when was that? Because sometimes you can also get this idea. Sorry to keep prefacing, but
No,
then you
it's
can
okay.
get this idea in your mind, like, oh, that they totally made, like, it feels like the bands you love made it, but like sometimes they really are like still struggling, and it just doesn't appear that way too.
Yeah. Man, that is so good, because not a lot of people have a deeper understanding of kind of the way that it can or cannot work. I mean, uh, just for me, to be honest, for years and years, like um, I always wanted to play music, and that's why I did it in the church. But always in the back of my head, I was like, I would love to make this a career. It's all I ever want. Like, I loved it so much. I loved performing. My brother played as well, and I had this big dream in my head about me and him being in a band together and making it our career, and being successful, and people knowing who we were and having money and all this stuff. And these are kid dreams, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I wanted. And we had a band. We moved out of the city together. We moved to the big city, which was Nashville, which was 7 hours north, and pushed really, really hard for years to go somewhere with it. I even remember I told my parents, I was like, we had this great plan. We are like, Mom, Dad, we're gonna move to Nashville, and when I turn 25, if our band hasn't made it yet, I'm gonna go back to school. And I said it was like a complete lie, complete fabrication. Because 25 came around, but at the same time, it was a disappointment to myself. As like anything else, when you're a kid, you have all these big dreams. Things just do not go the way that you plan them for anything you do in life, year by year. If you haven't figured that out by now, you need to wake up as a human being. Stop
Yep.
stop dreaming so much and get to work and do whatever it takes. But it's easier to say that. It was really hard at the time because as that band was failing and other things weren't going right, I struggled with so much fear of failure because I was
Mhm.
like, I was like selling security systems on, at a call center for a long time in Nashville, and like it was like the most soul sucking job, and I was probably, you know, 26 at the time.
Like
And
telemarketing kind of, or the
yeah,
cold calls?
like cold calling and
Oh
doing all
god,
that.
I did that in college, and it was like it's truly soul sucking.
Yeah. And I had it though because it was like I could work inside during the winter. I had a friend there that was a drummer. He said you can make pretty good money if you know how to sell stuff. Excuse me. I absolutely hated talking to people on the phone especially about that. I felt bad for calling them. I just went through this very depressive episode of like, this isn't going to work out. Um, and I'm not saying that's unique. That's any entertainment business or whatever. But at the same time, I stuck with it and stuck through that period of time. I started playing with a lot of different people. Um, and I watched a lot of other people fall off, and other really good musicians I grew up with that got to a point in their life where they're just like, I remember that it's like they would like post something on either Facebook or whatever it be, like, I'm actually quitting now and I'm moving on. And it was just always weird to me to make a real statement like that in life, like a public statement
Yeah.
of like, I'm done. Because even when our band quote ended, we never said anything about it. I was like, I just don't want to make this announcement. It's like we could get back together in a year from now and do more records. I don't want to be that band. And it would have just closed the casket on something that I didn't want to admit didn't work out after
Mhm.
years. Um, and so I guess my point is finally meeting the right people, and slow process of meeting Manchester, writing with them. We did the Cope record together first, and I really got along with them. But of course, it still wasn't you know, like everyone had it cocked up to be, as far as like now you've made it, so you're good and you're set for life. It was like, no, it was like still struggling big time for years. It was an interesting time in the band's life. They're off of a label, did it independently. I was like barely making enough through touring to get by, and was putting money on credit cards. And like, it's just funny the perspective, because everyone else is
Yeah.
like, dude, you're a rock star now, all this bullshit. And I'm like, I'm grateful. I'm doing exactly what I want to do, but there's still a really long ways to go. So, um, it's taken a long time of working really hard with those guys, and now like we're doing well. We're very busy, and I just I know that I can't listen to any like haters try to diminish what I've done or what my journey is. And I don't try to ever brag about it or say anything that would come off that way. I'm just super grateful because that I have a dream that is realized, and not a lot of people get to do that. And even the people that are doing that, a lot of they just party their ass off sometimes and don't really appreciate it. I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of the musicians I meet, they're kind of burned out, and I try to do everything I can not to be that person, because I realize it could be gone tomorrow. I'm just going to try to make as good of music as I possibly can with these guys for as long as I can, and that's the goal. So that's what we're
I love
doing.
that, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it comes out like just following you on Instagram. It's only so much, but like a lot of that's most people's perception of anything. You follow the bands you like, you follow the people you like, and then you see what they post. And I think that's something that comes across is that you have, there's definitely an air of gratitude and thankfulness for where you're at, that you truly seem to love it and enjoy it. It's not just like a job that you phone in because you made it. It's like something you work hard at and really love. And I think that's super obvious. And then, dude, it must be sick to play like just some of these festivals. Like, I feel like festivals are really fucking coming back in a way that it's meaningful, like between like the When We Were Young or Furnace Fest or whatever.
Totally. Those are
Uh,
super fun and unique,
yeah.
different, and people still love it, man. It's amazing, especially after the pandemic and everything. That changed everything for a while, and it came back really strong. And it's just incredible to me. You know, the way that it doesn't, none of it seems real when it's happening. You know, the fact that these people want to keep buying tickets to come see us play a time and over again, and that they want to stick around for years. And it hasn't been like we wrote this big pop song and got huge all of a sudden. It's just been this really slow uphill growth. And hopefully those people stick around, and that we seem to have just like this eclectic fan base of every, age, and
Yeah,
people are
definitely.
bringing their kids to the shows, which is the coolest thing. We get really stoked about that. We're just trying to maintain the happiness within our band. That's a hard thing to do, but everyone puts in the effort to do that. I think, at least at this point, we all talk about this stuff all the time. If there's an issue, we go right to each other, and we're brothers at this point. And I'm super grateful for that experience too, because not it's not playing on a sports team, but it's still a team thing, that you have this like really close camaraderie with other people in a unique way, and especially when you're stuck on the road together. And a lot of people don't get that experience. They have close friends and they hang out a lot, but when you're really stuck together, and like your career is leaning on the fact that you guys aren't gonna, if one person's a bad egg or is being an asshole, like, you can really ruin the whole vibe of the camp. So you don't want to be that guy. And I learn a lot from being around those guys. They've taught me a lot, been very gracious. I kind of came in and a little hot and thinking I was tough shit and I knew a lot. And it's I'm a totally different person than I was when I started, and I'm grateful for that.
That's awesome, man.
It seems like in order to keep that good chemistry with a bunch of other adults that you're around that much, like, it's got to be like an active effort to do that. Is there like, okay, like let's say you're on tour, is there like rules that kind of govern some of the interactions that you guys have with each other? Like you mentioned, if there's a problem, you go straight to the person and talk it out and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there other things like that that keep the tensions low and the fun high?
Definitely. There's not really a set list of rules. It's just, if you're around us enough, you kind of understand the vibe. Because we just love to laugh our asses off as much as the day as we can. And then when it comes to playing, we'll go out there and play the best show we can. But the thing is, it's funny, is we get along really well as a band, but you also have to maintain, we have crew with us, and there's 5 people that are on tour in the band. There's 5 crew members, and it's really hard to keep the same people, especially touring these days. It's like impossible to find a bus, impossible to find a bus driver, impossible to find a tour manager, a merch guy,
Oh man.
a stage manager, blah blah blah. But once you find those good people, you kind of learn how to keep them around and develop relationships with them. And if one of those people have a problem, then it has to be addressed as well. And we have less issues between the band members than we do with other people. So it kind of reaffirms the fact that, like, we're good. There'll be some other
Yeah,
drama
right.
going on. We're like, we're happy. So as long as we can put the show on and give people that paid a lot of money to be here a good experience, then we're good. That's the whole point. It's actually pretty simple. So if someone's being what we call what we call a special boy, uh, which is anyone on tour that is entitled and needs something special that other people don't get. That term helps a lot. I think there's a lot of terms that there's like punisher. That's a great term. Don't be a punisher. Don't get in someone's space and, like, when they just read the room, and and try to figure out how not to kill the vibe. You know, that's called a vibe assassin. Yeah, man, all this stuff comes from touring and being around people constantly. After tours, you've been around so many people as far as, you know, people at the shows, but you've also been in a cramped space with 10 other people, whatever it is, constantly every day. And if you're introverted, it sucks all the energy out of you, and it's fun and it's worth it. But when you get home, you just realize, like, oh my God, like, I don't want to see anyone forever.
Like being back, it's like being back in the Christian camp days.
Yeah. And I feel bad for my wife because I'm like, I want to hang out with her and see her, but I'm also like, I need space for a minute, just, you know, as far as anyone, because people take energy from you, and you want to show up and not be a grumpy, like, asshole to people. That's what happens when when people meet the heroes or their, you know, band they like, and the guy's just a dick. It's because he's probably really worn out of seeing people, and, you know, or he just is a dick. I'm not excusing everybody, but give him some grace.
All right, softball question before we get out of here. What's one of the, like, doesn't have to be the favorite, but like one of your favorite bands you've toured with? It's just two is fucking awesome as a whole.
Let's see. The last tour we just had, man, we've had some good ones. Like, we've been blessed with, because that's another thing, is if the other band on tour if there's one bad apple and one bad vibe.
So let's do that. Let's say who's the worst band you've ever toured with? And who specifically in the band did you fucking hate?
Oh, man.
Just kidding.
No.
Any tours with the mirror?
Drop names on this. We recently just did a tour with a guy named P.O.D and his band. He's actually he's all over Instagram. He does all these funny videos online, and I think he got really big, like, on TikTok. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Tall, skinny guy with long hair,
beard. Looks like Jesus, kind of.
I love that dude.
He is the best, man, and his band is so sweet. They have he does all the online stuff, but he never talks about it. He never acts like an online superstar. He's just this really chill dude that loves playing music, and we watched their band get better while they were on tour with us. It's like every show we'd watch.
That's awesome.
The next level. It was really cool. Lunar Vacation was another band that toured with us, which were Atlanta-based band that was just the sweetest people. They're so good. Our band got obsessed with them. We've done a lot of touring with. There's a band called Foxing we really love.
Yes, dude, I fucking love Foxing.
They
I saw them.
The coolest.
Did you know the band The Hotelier?
I know of them, but I don't know them.
So a buddy that I had in high school was in that band, and I would see that. They did a tour with Foxing years ago, and I saw them in Boston, and I was like, that was my first time seeing Foxing, and I was like, holy fucking shit, this band is amazing.
They're so cool.
That had to have been like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're is it something The Moon? I forget what their newest album is, but it's amazing. Like they
Draw
seem
Down
like
the
really
Moon.
cool guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Draw Down the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I didn't get to the night I was with them, they mostly played Magic the Gathering in the back of their van. So I don't know them at all. But
they seem like cool dudes.
They seem like cool guys.
They definitely are. Yeah, I could kind of go on and on, but we've been blessed with, we kind of, when it comes down to it, it's our decision who's going on tour.
Which is cool.
We do get offers though that sometimes make sense in certain markets, but we still have to check out who it is, and hopefully we get along. But yeah, there's a band called Tiger's Jaw we adore as well. It's like, we did a tour with them and Foxing, and it was like a party every night. It was just so good, and then they're just consistently good every night too. So we like watching them, getting inspired, and yeah. Anyways, those are some good.
You ever toured with P.O.D?
Dude, I was really into P.O.D, and I forgot. Remember the youth pastor I said that had the Prowler, the vape car?
Oh, he ripped P.O.D from the Prowler, didn't he?
One of the things that was like a prize, you can win for bringing friends or whatever.
They're riding his Prowler.
They're riding his Prowler.
No, fuck! Are you serious?
Yeah. And you can only guess which band he played as soon as I got in the car.
Oh, you were pounding Youth of the Nation in there for sure,
dude. He was so stoked too. He just like clicked it on and started turning it up and was like looking over at me. I'm like, all right, this is going to be super weird. When I was
I think
younger, I was into P.O.D. though. I know almost every lyric to the Southtown record. I could probably still sing it. So,
Well, they are the greatest band alive or dead. So,
I got big respect for P.O.D.
No, what's anything new coming out from, or what are you guys up to in Manchester? You got anything on the horizon?
Yeah, we're always working on something. Monthly, we're always busy. We have a podcast as well, just the band members. You're not going to learn anything from it as far as, well, that's not true. You'll learn a lot of things that are happening within the band. And that has like helped us survive. Like we started it before, right when the pandemic happened, and it gave us a reason to do something every month. We do a studio performance, and it kept us playing, because otherwise I think we would have just like chilled hard and not done nothing.
Such a good idea.
That saved us, and we're still doing it though. People still want to pay, which is really a huge blessing, and we try to make it worth their time. So there's that, but we're going into writing at the beginning of this year. We're not touring for a while. I don't think until next summer. Early next summer is what we're talking about right now, and it's the biggest break we've had for a long time, which is needed. This year was crazy, but we're going to use that time to write. We're just always writing and looking for the next project, and we're kind of functioning on all cylinders at this point. We're really happy with each other, so I'm excited to see what happens. The beginning of this year, it's like I can't wait to see what we're able to come up with next. And making a record can be stressful and terrible sometimes, but I think we can actually really enjoy this process. So we're going to try to.
Well, I can't wait to catch you guys next time you run through the Massachusetts area.
Yeah. Hit me up, please. If you guys want to ever come to a show, or in Wichita, I would love to come out there again. I don't know how close we'll get to that, but next year we'll just message me or whatever, and
we'll
get you
find
guys
you a place with indoor plumbing around here.
That would be nice. A real green room. Cool, dude.
Well, it's been great to meet you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this and spending some time with us.
Yeah, thank you guys for doing this. It's important. You're taking out of your precious time. I know you have busy lives, but I think it needs to be talked about. I was nervous when I was, going to talk about this, because I haven't in a long time, other than maybe like getting drunk with a friend that used to go to church, and you start talking about some heavy stuff sometimes. And anyways, I just appreciate it. So
yeah, man, this is awesome. It was really cool getting to meet you.
Yeah, man, likewise. I'll be in touch.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.